everybody, I'm Danielle Massi. I'm the founder of the Wellness Collective in Philadelphia, and I'm also a spiritual therapist, master shadow worker, and past life regression practitioner. And so today we're going to be talking about one of my most asked about topics, which is going to be past life regressions. Everybody wants to know about past lives. When people hear what I do, that's always the thing that people want to know about. How do I tap into my past lives? How do I know where I've been? How do I use my past lives to help me in this life? And so today we're going to fully go into that topic to make sure that you guys know everything there is to know about your past lives. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of hit the most common questions that I get asked, because there's a ton, but some of them are recurring. And as we talk through those questions, you guys might have more. I'd love to hear them. I'll answer them as best as I can. Past lives are so deep and so loaded. And so I'm sure this won't be the only time I ever talk about them. It's just the first. So let's just kick this whole thing off, right? I want to tell you guys a little bit about how I got into my own past life work, because it might help you understand why this is so important for me. So when I first got into the spiritual world, I felt like there were some things that I couldn't get over, like some blocks that were stopping me, and I couldn't figure them out because it didn't feel like there was any reason why. I couldn't trace them back to a moment. I couldn't find their origin, at least not in this life. And so I had been really interested in the idea of past lives because I read this book when I was young, Many Lives, Many Masters. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about it before. And when I did that and read that book, it was sort of the beginning point of understanding that these exist. And there's evidence to back up the fact that our past lives exist. There are lots of documented evidences of people who have recalled past lives, and the details just line up perfectly with what's happened. And so I did my first past life regression. And when I did, my whole life all of a sudden made sense. It was like having a key to a closet that I didn't realize I needed to open, and all of the answers were inside. And once I was able to take the information from that past life and bring it into this one, things radically shifted. And the best part was that that was just the first past life that I entered into. I've seen so many more since then. So now that you guys know a little bit about where I come from with this, let me give you some information about past lives. So basic, what is a past life, right? Each one of us is a soul in a body, and our souls live many lifetimes over and over again. We're just energy, and right now our energy is occupying this space, and when we pass on, our souls occupy a different space, and so we are reborn in essence, and we live over and over and over again. And so our souls get a chance to kind of go through certain things that we didn't figure out in any given lifetime over and over. And I think that's a really important piece to understand. In order to understand our past lives, we need to ask the question, why are we here? Why are we here on this earth? Why are we doing this? What's the point of it all? And I think in that question and understanding what that is lies the whole idea behind our past lives. What if we are here for a greater purpose? What if we have a reason to be here on the planet at any given time? And our purpose is very specific to us, but it has one core theme for all humans across the board, which is that we're here to learn, to grow, and to spread our light. And as long as we're doing that and sticking on that path, we are doing what we're supposed to do. And when we don't, we reincarnate and have some karma that comes with us, which happens inevitably to us all. And so each time we have a past life where we didn't do what we were supposed to do, where we didn't fulfill our soul's purpose, we get another chance to do it again. We reincarnate and our karma follows us. And so we might be born into this life holding some heaviness, which is what I felt when I started my own past life journey. We were born into this life holding that energy, holding those traumas, holding that stuff, and taking it here. And so those problems that we deal with, the ones that are really perpetual in our lives and unsolvable, and we can't figure out where the hell they came from because we can't trace them back, that's past lives, baby. That's what that is. And so it's your responsibility to get in there and to figure out what to do. Okay, so next question that I get asked all the time is, how do we actually do it? So when I do past life work, what we do is we get into a semi-hypnotic state. not fully hypnotic. You're fully aware. You know what's going on. And I speak you through the beginning to get you into that deeply meditative state. And once you're there in that deep sort of semi-hypnosis, you end up leading me. You take me where we're going. And you'll know exactly where we're going because your spirit guides are helping you. And so all of a sudden you'll land somewhere and I'll ask you questions like, what's underneath your feet? And you'll just blurt out sand. And you won't know why you're saying it because maybe you see it, maybe you don't know. But all of a sudden you say sand and I tell you to look around and you'll tell me you see huts, or you'll tell me that you see an ocean to the side or pyramids or whatever it is. And this is something that's very important for me. Our brains are very typical. They like to remember the same things over and over again. Even when you try to be creative and like do something on your own, you're probably going to conjure up images that you've been using your whole life because our brains like the typical, they like the familiar. And so when we drop into past lives and you're seeing things you've never seen before, your brain is not able to conjure that up on its own if it hasn't seen it. It can't recall those images if it hasn't been there, seen it, and experienced it. And when we do our past life work, you will literally walk through your past life. Another question that I get asked all the time is, how many lives have I had? And the answer is, I don't know. You might have hundreds or thousands. And there's a trick to kind of figure out how old your soul is, and it's based on your own energy. We all have this like tree of life that we're working our way up towards, and we want to get through and get to the top of this tree of life of our own learning, our own energy. How close to that soul's purpose are we? New souls tend to be pretty low on this, where they're really stuck in a lot of basic concepts. They have a lot of fear, they get really stagnant, they use pushy tactics to do things, and their energy overall is just a little rough. Whereas old souls, people who have lived multiple times over and over and over and over and over again, all with this general idea of I need to learn, to grow, and to spread my light, they tend to just have more of an ease in their energy. People are magnetized towards them because they feel very grounding in their energy. It feels good to be around them. And when we have those kind of people, they're just a little bit further along in their path. It's not good or bad because everybody's souls live many times. A newer soul might just have more lifetimes later, and that's okay. We're all on this same journey. Okay, so next question that I get asked all the time is, what's the point? Why do past life work? And the answer to that for me is simple. It's because this is how you figure out who you are and why you're here. Like I told you guys earlier, our souls have a purpose. We are here for a reason. And generally, the most basic idea is that we're here to learn, to grow, and to spread our light. But more than that, we each have a specific purpose. Like say someone's purpose is to help other people heal through energy work. And that's why I'm here on this planet. And I've been doing it over many lifetimes. So I've had clients either in my Create Your Light Academy or one-to-one work who find out that they've been doing variations of this work for thousands of years. And each lifetime they get back here and they don't start doing it till they're like 30, and they're just kind of messing around until then finding their path, and then they find it, and that's when they run. And everything shifts into alignment when they do. The faster you find out what your soul's purpose is, the faster you can embody it, the quicker you get to a place of full and total ease. The quicker you get to a place of feeling like your life is exactly what it's supposed to be, because when you find it, you know. When you find it, you know. So past lives are extremely important because they're one of the big keys to finding that soul's purpose and to helping us fulfill everything that we're meant to do here so that we can live our best life, you know. Next question I get asked all the time is, can I Google what I found out? And the answer is, yeah, sometimes you can. When you've had a lifetime where you've been either a prominent figure, which honestly, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen, or if you were part of a situation in history that was big and monumental and there would be some like documentation of it, we can find that. And so my favorite actual like instance of this is I had a client who, she was in Auschwitz and she died in the gas chamber. She was a little girl, but she actually could read in German the sign on the outside of Auschwitz when we were doing our session. She started speaking German. She doesn't speak German. And she read verbatim what the sign says outside. And then we Googled it afterwards and it was right. And I only knew what it was because we recorded the session, because I never would have remembered what she said. Another example of this is that in my own past life, I was a priestess in Egypt and I was doing funeral rites for a pharaoh. And so afterwards, I Googled funeral rites in the old dynasty in ancient Egypt, and it didn't match up, and I was bummed. Like, oh man, I must have made that up. This couldn't have been right. But then when I actually looked up the funeral rites for a pharaoh, they were completely different and they lined up. So yeah, you can Google some of these things afterwards, or you can Google the location. Like, you're gonna see a lot of things. You're gonna know exactly what the landscape looks like. You'll know who was around you, what it felt like, the time period based on subtle cues, right? And you can look those up afterwards and you might find them. I had another client who was in Greece and she went into a very, very specific building and she'd never heard of it before, never seen it before. And there was like specific markers, like a fountain in the entryway indoors and a lion. And she was able to find that those things were true later. And so, yes, some of these things you can Google, some of these things you can find afterwards. And it can feel really good to get that little bit of confirmation too. Like, yes, everything I saw was so on point. Sometimes the lives that we had are pretty generic, pretty basic, and that's okay too. It's not a bad thing. Harder to Google when that happens, but the pieces that are there that feel like very, very obvious and real, we can pull from. And also sometimes the lives that we see, like we'll see one of those more ordinary ones for a little bit and then hop to other ones, so you can find some, if not all. Okay, next question I ask, or I get asked all the time, is should I learn about all of my past lives? And the answer for me is no. The reason why is because think about the life that you have right now, right? There are periods of your life that you didn't really do much of anything. They were kind of boring and generic and like nice and didn't really teach you any lessons. There's nothing you need from there. Do you want to revisit those times? Maybe just for a moment, because they were pretty nice and stagnant, but they're not going to teach you anything. When we do past life work, we are really dropping into past lives where there is a lesson to be learned, where there is karma to be undone, circles to close. And so those are the past lives that we're dropping into. And when we do this work, we're really calling upon those times. We're really calling upon those to say, this is what we need to see. Bring me to that energy, bring me to that time, bring me to that place, so that if there's something my soul needs to know, I can learn the lesson and then release it. So that's a biggie. You don't need to do 100 or 1,000 past life sessions. You could do 3 and get everything you needed to know and more. So how do we know which past lives to drop into is another question I get asked. We don't. We're not going to know. What we do is we pull in your guides. And when we pull in your guides, we ask them to show us the ones that are important, and they'll bring us there. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this before in your own lives, but we tend to have some perpetual problems that crop up for us. Things that we cannot get our way out of, whether they're shitty relationships or the job that makes no sense, or feeling lost and directionless, but we don't really know where to start. All these things tend to be karma. It can also be related to an illness. So sometimes we can pull from our past lives karma and it manifests physically. So one person that I did a session for, she drowned in a past life as a slave and water entered her ear. And in this lifetime, she has no hearing in that ear. And that's the karma that she was pulling in from that lifetime. And so part of the work that she has to do here is to release the pain, to release that energy that's stuck within her, the grief, the sadness, all those things that are stuck, and to really heal that ear from doing those things. And she's using all kinds of alternative medicine practices to do this. So shadow work, Akashic records, traditional Chinese medicine, Kundalini, and acupuncture. And her hearing is already better. It's important for us to know these things because otherwise we wouldn't know how to heal them. And so I have something fun for you guys because I know that past lives are everybody's favorite topic. I'm going to give you guys a little quiz to start thinking about your own past lives, to find out where you've been, what you've done, and things like that. And so you can watch this recorded back for you later so that you have the questions, but I'm just going to ask them now. Things for you guys to ponder. So here is the past life test. The first thing I want you to think about is what in your life feels like super dramatic, like over the top drama. The second thing I want you to think about is what relationships have had an intense heaviness from day one. Like you met someone, it was like you knew them yesterday and they're just like, bam, like all of a sudden you're in it and you're like, how did we get here? I just met you 2 seconds ago. And they just get heavier over time. Another question to ponder is, have you ever felt an instant connection to someone that you just met? Like you've literally known them your whole life or, for lifetimes. Do you feel like there are certain phobias, obsessions, or fears that you have that have literally no explanation? One of my favorite examples of this is I had met someone who had a fear of someone standing behind her in a mirror, and we found out that that was exactly how she died in a past life, that she saw her attacker coming on through her reflection. That's a weird fear to have unless you've actually felt the need to protect yourself from that before. It's oddly specific. So what of those do you have? What weird fears? I've had other people who've been afraid to get into a car accident where the car flips and rolls, and that's been the way that they've passed in a past life. Pay attention to these things. They're telling you something. Next question. What special talents do you have that you didn't actually have to work hard for? Like what things are you just naturally very good at? Almost like you picked up where you left off from a past life. Let's see. What places in the world do you feel drawn to? Like, where are you really, really intensely excited about? Or what were you drawn to in history class? Were you one of those people who were obsessed with the French Revolution? And when you ask other people, they're like, who gives a crap? Like, nobody cares. Yeah. Someone said they just got chills. I know. It's wild how we're still so drawn to those things. Or conversely, are there moments in history that freak you out? Like when you read about the Black Plague, does it give you chills? Does it make your whole body go cold? Or are there other instances that do that for you? And it makes no sense, because why would you feel that way? Or were you drawn to books about that time? Like were you obsessed with reading the Diary of Anne Frank and of reading about stories of the Holocaust? Pay attention to where your mind wants you to go. It's telling you something. What cities have you always wanted to live in? Like, do you have dreams of moving to Paris for no reason? Have you always wanted to be in Shanghai and you cannot figure out why? Or are there places that you're completely opposed to? Like, for instance, I've grown up hating Boston for no reason, and I cannot tell you why, except when I did a past life, I found out that I was burned at the stake there. No other reason to hate it. So these things are telling you something. Okay, what movie eras do you gravitate to? Like if you're watching movies or TV shows, are there certain ones that pull you in? Like are you really interested in that flapper era of the 20s or Prohibition? Or something else? You really like watching Greek mythology? What issues in your life keep popping up over and over and over again where it's almost like a joke? Like the whole universe is being like, are you getting it yet? Because we're just throwing this your way over and over. Like a money block. Do you have a hard time receiving? Do you feel like you have terrible romances? And that tends to be a pattern that you get stuck in. Pay attention to these. They're a lesson from your past life. Let's see. What are the same themes that get to you in business, family, and personal matters? So are you someone who feels obligated to other people, and so you end up in the family business, and then you end up doing too much for the people around you, giving too much to your partners, giving too much to your friends? These themes are happening for a reason. What are the things that you regret in this life? Because those regrets, while they might have some basis here, if they're really strong, they're based somewhere else. They're always based in something deeper when they feel that heavy. Because we should, morally, ethically, in every way, we should be able to let go of those regrets. They shouldn't be long lasting. So when they are, that's an indicator. This is one that I love. What weird dreams do you have that have been recurring? And this can happen from childhood. Another example of this one, love this one. I had a client who had this recurring dream of being chased by a witch. And over again, it was always like this witch was pressuring her to do things, chasing her down, making her feel less than. And it turns out that in a past life, she burned at the stake for a witch that she was sort of being bullied into doing things for. And so she brought that into her life. As young as 3 years old, she remembers having this dream, and it lasted her whole childhood until she went to therapy to deal with it. These dreams are telling us something. Do you have a feeling that you're being punished for something? Like you have some kind of karma that you don't understand why you have it. This is so important because we all come into this life with karma, with soul contracts, with things that we are looking to release. And then, let's see, I think I have one or two more. What feels weird, irrational, or doesn't make sense in your life? Just take inventory of everything. What feels weird? What feels irrational? What doesn't make sense? Because those things probably are telling you something. Pay attention. The career you choose is telling you something. Why'd you pick what you do? Why did you choose to go into that field, that body of work? We're told to choose a career out of nothing, right? Like once you're old enough, when you're 17 years old, you have to choose to go to college, pick a career. Why? What is it that drew you in? What made you go, that could do? Probably a past life thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's your soul's purpose. So another example of this is I have a client who I just did a past life regression for, who is really big into fashion. She works in a fashion company. She wants to work in that field, but she doesn't actually feel very fulfilled. And so when we did her past life work, we found that in a very old lifetime, she was someone who worked with plants and with animals, and she was unbelievably happy. And another lifetime in Paris where she worked in fashion and was miserable. And so the karma there is to choose the happiness, even if it doesn't come with the glitz, the glam, the money, all those other things. That is not what makes her feel fulfilled. It looked like a dream life from the outside, but on the inside, she was miserable. Whereas the other life was so simple. So simple. And it was the one that made her so joyful. Okay, last thing that I want you guys to pay attention to is, what do you know deep in your heart? Like when you really stop and close your eyes and just take a couple of deep breaths. What is your purpose? Why are you here? And whatever your answer is to that, where the hell did that come from? Most likely it's from a past life. Okay, so those are all the questions that I brought in, all the things for you to think about. Make sure you watch this back later, and I'm going to start pulling from the questions that you guys have posted in here. I have both Facebook and Instagram going. So let's see. Is it possible that this is someone's first life? Because there are so many people in the world, and more than before. It makes sense to me. Also, this is great. I'm so glad that you're enjoying this. And yes, I mentioned this at the very, very beginning of the live, so you might have missed it, but absolutely. There are people who are brand new souls. And you know the difference between old souls and young souls. So make sure you go back and rewatch this video from the very beginning, because I give a nice long explanation about it. But absolutely, more souls are being birthed all the time. So there's a mix. There's a lot of people who are very old souls, like thousands of years old. And there are people who are here for the first time. And it doesn't matter whether you're one of those old souls or one of those new souls. This time in particular, 2020, is a time where time is irrelevant. Because there's so much healing, so much learning that we can do right now. This is like the Great Awakening is what people are calling it, because the energy right now is so potent. We're switching into the Aquarian age. This is the time. If you wanted to do anything, if you want to manifest something, if you want to quantum leap, this is the time. It doesn't matter if your soul's 1,000 years old or 8 years old. This is the time. Okay, let's find more questions. Definitely a past life is why my career pulls me in multiple directions. Yeah, it might even be because in your past lives, you've had so many different careers around the same modality that you're like, well, do I want to do chiropractics, acupuncture? Do I want to do Reiki? Do I want to do energy work? Do I want to just like say fuck it and move somewhere and help people do cacao ceremonies? Probably because in past lives, you've been rotating around this theme of careers, but it's not about the one. It's not about the one job that pulls you. It's about the idea of being of service. So that's where we really want to get to understand, what is it that you're doing here? What's your soul's purpose? Because if you know that, you recognize it's not about the career. And this was a hard one for me too. I was a therapist. I've been a therapist for a very long time, over a decade. And choosing to go more into the spiritual route was like, ooh, but I spent all that money on college and like I've been doing this for so long and really establishing my foothold in Philly as being one of the premier therapists, and that's okay because I'm still here to help people heal. I just have a different way that I'm going to do it now, a way that is arguably just a little bit more to the point. And so everything happens for a reason. Okay, so I'm popping over to Facebook because I see a couple questions in here. Hey, Majette. Okay, so Caitlin, this is so eye-opening. My entire childhood, I dreamed I was being chased by vampires and zombies. I know it seems crazy. It doesn't. And once I was touched by one and I woke up from feeling it was so real, like it was underneath my bed. This is so crazy. I need to look into the dream now. Okay, so for this one, when you wake up feeling like you're being touched by something, it's probably because you are. Don't let that freak you out. When the veil is really thin between our world and the next realm, spirits are able to pull our attention to connect with us in different ways. And so they'll do things to get our attention, like, you know, like, this is a mug here, like kind of make it sound like it's rolling around somewhere, or you'll hear tapping noises, or you'll hear like a whisper, or you'll feel a touch, or a breeze will go by and it makes no sense. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I've been noticing behind my head in this video, especially on the Instagram view, that like right over in this area, there's been like light moving the whole time, and like at different points in the video it's much more intense than others, and there's no reason for it because I'm sitting in front of a window and the sky is completely blue. I have no sun hitting me directly, and there hasn't been anything passing overhead. So spirits will reach out in whatever way that they want to, and when we're sleeping and our guard is down, that's a really easy time to try and get messages through. Same thing with your own brain. Our brains remember our past lives. It's the reason why we're able to get into those hypnotic states and access our past lives when we do this work. I don't have to prompt you. You bring me there. And it's because we remember everything once we allow ourselves to. Once you remember that you remember your past life, once you know that you can just kind of scooch over and grab it and pull it back with you, it gets so easy. And so in the first few times that you do past life work, I always recommend using a guide because they help you pull that stuff in. But once you get it, you can do it by yourself. You can pull that information out whenever you're ready in whatever way feels fit. And so doing past life work is also learning how to access this stuff for yourself, because you are the guru, you are your medicine, you're the one who can pull this stuff out, and you don't really need experts or other people to do this for you. You just need to learn. You just need to learn the how and the why and the ways to do it safely and ethically, and to not do it for other people because that's not fair to them. Please leave this to people who are trauma informed, because sometimes past lives can be a little intense. So you can access that for yourself if you wanted to. So Caitlin, thank you so much for sharing that, because now you need to look that up and let me know, because I'm going to be on the edge of my seat waiting. If there's any other questions that you guys have about past lives, don't hesitate to reach out. I get asked about this all the time, so I will make more follow-up videos. I'll make a point to keep talking about them. I love telling you guys about your past lives. And of course, if you want to book a session with me, all you have to do is go to my website, IamDanielleMassi.com, click the link to schedule, and I'll see you in the past. Bye, everybody.